Okay, hopefully this did it. It looks like it's working everywhere. Wow, it's so much less scary. It was all like laggy and terrible and ugh. Yeah. So here I'll talk about that. I'll open up with that. Hello, everyone. Why does this thing keep snapping so weird? Windows in case I got a good chat going. Hello, and welcome to the Technocrat Live, and I'm your host, Matthew Newhall, for the fourth time. Yes, and you haven't seen me in months. Hopefully this is the actual show. It looks like it's working. I'm actually seeing myself in video on, well, one of the platforms anyway. Maybe the other one too. YouTube definitely looks happy. I had a problem, so let me tell you what's going on. So I was actually broadcasting in 4K, and YouTube can handle it. Odyssey can't. They just 1080p. But I thought it was downscaling. I actually had tried an experiment, but it was very little motion. And I had tried it on a really honking computer. I actually did try it on my laptop, but with very little motion. So it just doesn't work. My laptop cannot handle both recording and rendering to a stream 1080p. And then multi-streaming to multiple platforms. It's too much CPU. It just completely lags. So I don't know what's going on with Odyssey. I'm going to just let it go. It's entirely possible that this is going to be, the current bit rate is recommended. They're saying 68, stream bit rate of 68 kilobits per second, 1600 kilobits per second. Oh my god, I gotta do this again. I had set the bitrate to 4K, which is about 50,000 to be safe. So maybe I'm gonna have to go back and change it. Oh yeah, I see the lag. Yeah, I'm almost tempted to leave it, but no, I'm gonna stop it again. Here we go again. Yeah, it's screwing Odyssey up, so. See you later, folks. Here's to hoping the fifth time's a charm. We're actually back to the old settings from 1080p. Maybe this will work? It says excellent connection, but it's easy to say excellent connection when it says monochrome logo page. Let's see if I can get this going again. Okay. It seems to be thinking it's working on Odyssey. One can hope. All right, everything seems to work. Let's try this again. I'm going to have to edit all this stuff out. I may have to re-upload this video. All right. Hello, and welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matthew Newhall, and thank you so much for joining me. I think this is my final intro. Oh, I'm looking at Odyssey, and the video is coming up. This is really good. All right, if you're settled in and you don't hate me for all that moo-ha-ha that just occurred, then I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to edit that junk out in the beginning. So, what was that junk all about? Well, something interesting has happened. I've actually gotten a new camera, and it's a 4K camera, and I actually did test it before the show, and it worked great. The problem is my test subject was a clock, which had very little movement. So as soon as I put like me talking and moving my hands and stuff on my laptop and tried to broadcast with that, my laptop just fell over, just completely fell over. It couldn't handle streaming and recording the 4K, and then also there's a virtual machine on there that multi-streams to multiple platforms. So that's the first thing I've addressed. I'm going to be 1080p for right now, although the source to the encoding is 4K for this camera, which, by the way, is absolutely stunning. Let me know what you think of the camera. It's brand new. A lot of work and thought went into this. I hope it's living up to what you'd like to see for a show like this. I mean, it is a talking head show, but I mean, who doesn't love really great resolution? All right. Also, I've been not doing the show for a few months. I know my viewers have kind of got out of the routine of coming and watching the show, and that's fine. I know it's going to be a little rough going for a few weeks. That's okay, because there's going to be weird hurdles like this. I've started doing short segments and other kinds of content. In addition to, I really needed to get a reliable quality camera in here before I started having guests again, which I've done. So let me know if there's anyone you want to see on the show, and I'll get right to getting them on here. So it's the same studio. If you know, nothing's really changed, although some of the lighting options have changed. My lighting options expanded. It's a lot brighter in here. It used to be a dungeon. It was bad. I couldn't read the paper. My guests couldn't see. We were tripping over stuff. It was so dark, because that's the only way you could get the webcams to perform, so that it didn't get washed out. I mean, you could try to fix it in software after the fact, but that kind of stuff's expensive, and honestly, it just didn't work that well. You know, you quickly lose quality when you start messing around with software changes on a live video. So the object of the exercise was to get a really high quality video out the door in the first place, which I looks like we're doing. I mean, from what I can see, the framing and the lighting looks pretty good. Again, please let me know. I missed you guys. You know, I really love doing the show. I love keeping up with the news. I love interacting. I like people fact checking me. I want feedback. I want people to give me comments and tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, is this working out the way? Are things working out the way you expected? Did I cover the most relevant story? So let me know. Also, if you're new to the show, please understand, I don't mind if you time shift. In fact, I expect you to. I don't mind playing to an empty room, because I know people are going to pick it up later. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking it out. I've got some really interesting news for you this week. And I've already started to line up interviews, but I gotta work out some kinks first. Also, if there's any suggestions that people have for platforms, right now I'm just doing what I was doing on Odyssey and YouTube. By the way, both of them have censored me not so long ago when I was having... it's one of the things that discouraged me and got me to stop doing the show. And I'm actually going to go across more platforms. But my main goal here is reliability of the shows. Once I put it up, I don't want it to be interrupted while I'm recording it live, and while I'm streaming it live, and I don't want it to be taken down later. So if whoever the most censorship-proof program Web2 company is, I want to know. Right now I'm looking at X.com and Rumble, but I'm open to other suggestions. Please let me know. You're the people that showed up, the guys and girls that showed up. So that's who I want to hear from the most. Okay, so onward. I do a news segment on here called Dystopia Report, and it is the tech news. And man, tech is just jacking people. So there's a ton of it. It's going to be a really long Dystopia Report, but let's get to it. And Dystopia Report, because chaos. All right, so tech. Sony has removed its 8K claim from gaming consoles. not only one game can even function in 8K. It's funny that this seems very relevant to my 4K debacle, my 4K streaming debacle. Yeah, so only they apparently people have been saying they're making false claims because none of their games run in 8K, so they just took it off. So I think that maybe is a sign that 4K is enough for most people. That people, people may still buy 8K TVs, so they're future proof. But I don't know, man. Maybe you're not going to need it. I mean, if Sony can't be bothered to make video games that run in 8K, I mean, I guess it's just too much CPU for what you can buy hardware-wise right now. All right, so Google will be removing. This is kind of interesting. Google will be removing all personal location data from its servers starting December 1st of 2024 this year. Yeah, so they've been keeping track of people's locations and freaking them out for quite a long time now. And I'm wondering why they decided now. There was another story about Google getting sued, but that I'm choosing not to cover. So I'm wondering if maybe that's related. But anyway, it's theguardian.com if you want to know more. Yeah, it's. I don't think it's in response to law or a civil case. I think they're just doing the right thing. So I want to give Google credit. Good job, guys. Okay, so it's official. There's a New York Times article. If you haven't heard about this, it may very well be that screens are worse than drugs. Yeah, check this out. So it's kind of an anecdote. It's not a statistical model. But, honestly, any statistical model that's worth looking at is going to have outliers and need anecdotes to at least begin to talk about what the outliers might mean. So either way, so this is a story about a small village in Brazil. I believe it's Brazil. Marubo. Thank you. Sorry, Marubo got Starlink. Yeah, so this little tiny village that basically it's only gotten. They just started really interacting with the rest of the world. They have their own language. They don't even have last names, right? Because they are. It's a tiny jungle village, and they carried Starlink in on their back, and now they have high-speed internet. I think it was 3 or 4 units, and the whole village has internet, and it is having meaningful social effects. Let's just say the algo addiction problem is real. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, they had gotten technology in the form of like chainsaws and clothing, and these are they're Western technologies that they've adopted, and pretty much that's it. They just needed some basic clearing machinery, and so they could maintain their village easier, and clothing, and they really haven't done anything until Starlink. And yeah, the kids are losing interest in all the cultural norms. They're actually kind of had a racist reaction, or at least that's how the Times is depicting them. They're like saying they're learning the ways of the white people. I mean, this is where race comes from. Is you live in a tiny village, you don't ever see anyone else. Everybody looks like your cousin, and if you ever see someone who doesn't look like your cousin, you freak out. So anybody who gets too bent out of shape about how awesome their race is, that's the origin. You maybe shouldn't be so excited about your race. Race is kind of dumb, and I mean, they're learning. They're just starting to adjust to society. But anyway, interesting. NewYorkTimes.com if you want to check it out. They try to turn it into a little bit of a hit piece, but it's eating its own tail. So, and it is kind of interesting in the sense that, yeah, the algos are really addictive. It's bad. It isn't our culture. It creates a culture of addiction. So California apparently has passed electricity demand with solar generation. They got as far as a 55-day streak running off of solar in California. So good for them. Really awesome. I'm more interested in. It's not that I just don't like to talk about climate change. But in general, I think it's too politically hot, and it's people are extremely uninformed when they try to talk about it, myself included. I just admit it. Most other people don't. But I will say that it. If you didn't know, California is desert. A good chunk of California is desert. There is some forest there. There are some mountains, but even the bulk of the mountains are desert. So yeah, it's a really good candidate for solar. People don't necessarily want to live there. Big wide open spaces, tons of heat and sun. So good for them. I'm really happy. Sustainable energy is a big deal. I actually did the numbers real quick on what this means for, let's say, the entire state was driving Teslas. I just use Tesla as an example because that's the biggest electric car right now. There are other brands, obviously, that are very good, but it looks like it's about a quarter of the CO2 emissions, which is going to be a strong case. Now, I don't know if I trust their numbers necessarily, but what's really one of the things that's interesting here is apparently, in a not unrelated story, that was cleantechnica.com. They do not expect rolling blackouts this year, so everyone's kind of making fun of hey, Ariella, thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you. They do expect to be able to not have any rolling blackouts this year, so good for them pulling that off. It's still a possibility. They're not denying it could happen, but one of the concerns is that having a ton of electric cars is going to majorly stress the grid, which is probably part of their problem, but it looks like they're coming around. They added like tens and tens of gigawatts this year, so good for them. In case you're curious, a gigawatt is 750,000 homes. I think that's probably a little high. That's the Google vanilla answer for how much that is, in case you're wondering what those numbers are. But it's pretty interesting. It seems like they're creating a closed system, which is really good to me because that would be more resistant to, say, war or a solar EMP. An EMP, a weaponized EMP or a solar EMP, which our grid is woefully unprepared for. Okay, so the AWS CEO is stepping down. I don't know, maybe Amazon's kind of in trouble here. They have a page up, and it's very vanilla and cut and dry. Apparently, the person in charge of marketing is going to be taking over at AWS. And I kind of understand why. It seems like, there is no cloud. It's just other people's computers. It seems like maybe they've hit some kind of peak. There is actually a trend where people seem to be going back to data centers or hybrid. So that is because so many people move out of state, of California. I mean, that is definitely happening in California and in New York. So that's probably true. I don't know if it's statistically significant in as far as the power grid stability is concerned, but it is happening. Also, it looks like the smartest people in the world aren't coming back. And what I mean by that is people who are telecommuting have been told by like Apple, Microsoft, SpaceX that you got to come to the office or you're fired. And it looks like they'd rather just fire the 100Xers, which is pretty disturbing for some of these companies because those 100Xers are probably irreplaceable without a very long time scale. I mean, I'm sure that, when someone's making $10 million a year and you're not working on any new projects, do you really need that person to maintain your old projects? I get that. So maybe this is a good thing for them, but surrounding yourself with smart people is important. Anyway, so one of the things that may happen is they may have the people who are telecommuting may have built a life for themselves, and they have kids, they have families, and they have friends and family and neighbors, extended family and neighbors that they have grown accustomed to in remote areas. and they just don't want to move back to a big city to be in whatever headquarters. So that may be part of what's happening with the telecommuting world. Okay, so it looks like there's a Boeing whistleblower. There's actually been a few that have died. Boeing whistleblowers. Boeing's in the news quite a bit. This report. I'm actually doing 2 weeks worth of news because I wanted to kind of get back in the swing. But Santiago Padres says we suck, and this is a direct quote. They always made a fuss about why I was finding it, why I was looking at it. So the Boeing actually Offset has a subsidiary called Spirit, and they're the ones who build the much maligned planes that the doors and the wings and everything keeps falling off of. They're having quality control issues, and this guy has been saying, here's the quote: "They always made a fuss about why I was finding it, why I was looking at it." So not really a good look for Boeing. Okay, OpenAI apparently is considering allowing pornography. Specifically, if you don't know which graphical AI generator I'm talking about, it's DALL-E. So it seems like there's some serious risk for an AI company allowing this. So why? I mean, actually, I had a real problem. I did a thumbnail for my sex tech segment. That's one of the shorts that I'm going to start doing on a regular basis. And I had a lot of trouble giving it any parameters to make an image of a woman. Like, I didn't want her to be scantily clad. I just wanted her to look like she would be on OnlyFans. You interpret that how you want to interpret that. And apparently the AI did too, and they were giving me a lot of weird restrictions on what I could do. I basically had to just keep gambling with my money until I got the image I wanted. Well, apparently maybe other people are having that experience. So and it's hurting them because they're getting competition from open source products, right? I mean, once you get to a certain resolution, you can either make an image of a person or you can't, and half of the images are going to be half people, right? Even if you have a really spiffy background, people like to look at pictures of people. So that's going to be part of it. Anyway, theguardian.com if you want to check out more. A Max 737 accidentally crashed into the whistleblower's house. Are you serious right now? I mean, I just didn't even... What? Okay, I think she's kidding. Anyway, but there was jokes about, the guy from Hitman being the employee of the month at Boeing. I'm not going to cover all those people. I don't know. Honestly, there are better podcasts for that kind of thing. And I'm not saying it's just a conspiracy theory. It's very odd timing. It's a theory, but, I'm sure somebody could do a 2-hour documentary on what's going on with the whistleblowers at Boeing. So I'm just not going to dig that deep into it. But check it out if that's something that interests you. Boeing's got a lot of stuff going on. So, all right, so apparently sensor sweeps are needed after car crashes now. We've reached a tipping point with the amount of sensors in cars. Typically, adding sensors to cars made economic sense because the accident prevention stats were coming out better. When you average in the cost to insurance companies and that getting passed on to the consumers, than the costs of the cars. Well, apparently we reached a tipping point where too many cars are getting totaled because just fixing the sensors that are scattered all over the car has become so expensive that the car basically is thrown away once it goes and gets into any accident. Kind of an unforeseen consequence. Some people might argue it's planned obsolescence, but I think it's kind of a balancing act. Anyway, so check out. There's a good story on this. What happened to my? Seems like I blew my printout up. Anyway, I don't know the source on that, but it was. You should be able to find it pretty easily. I don't ever remember what it was. Anyway, there was a source. I swear to God. All right, so this is kind of excellent. A little scary for New York specifically, but pretty excellent for the world, and pretty excellent if you're a free market person, which of course everyone on the stock exchanges will tell you they are. Texas is planning on making its own stock exchange. That's right. So a billionaire has decided to a billionaire and a group of people have decided to make a stock exchange. I actually had the name written down, but for some reason it got cropped out on my printout. Yeah, it's going to compete with NICE and NASDAQ, and it was, I believe it was BlackRock was one of the companies that was behind it, and yeah, this is going to be a major upheaval, because what people don't realize is a lot of the way that the economics in the corporate stock and bond markets work are actually based on specifically on New York state law. Like a lot of the security laws that people have to follow are New York state laws, and they aren't necessarily present in other states. So this is kind of a bit of an opportunity to kind of rewrite the rules about what you can do with stocks and derivatives and bonds, which can be very Wild West and very dangerous, but it also can reveal some corruption too. So I'm not going to get into exactly how I think it could go wrong, but I also think it could go horribly right. But either way, the real loser here, I think, is going to be New York State, because they're going to lose some of the money fountains going away, and it's going to Texas. Anyway, really important story. Forbes.com if you want to read more. Berkshire Hathaway apparently did not fall 99%. That was a lie on June 3rd at around 11 a.m. It looked like it fell 99%, but then they stopped the stock and said, no, that didn't happen. And they had to look into the trades that occurred during the period of time when supposedly it plunged 99%. Now, of course, they credited this to a bug, but they would say that no matter what happened. It kind of looks like an attack to me. I'm not sure it is a bug, because check out these other stocks that were affected. AMC, Chipotle, and GameStop. Remember the stonks craze a couple of years ago? Yeah. It's like a who's list of the stonks crazes. You know, whether it's shorting or longing. What? Those are the stocks that their stock prices went in random crazy directions, but it was not true, and ignore that. There's no man behind the curtain. Don't look at that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own stuff. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Okay, so tech government. This is kind of interesting. New York has introduced a bill to ban cell phones in schools. Really? Really? That's what you're going to do. The home of 9/11. The largest city in the world's last remaining superpower. And our kids aren't going to be able to have any kind of form of communication while they're in school. What? Who thought this was a good idea? Apparently, the idea is, well, you can have a flip phone. Right. Okay. The carriers are going to just let you move your SIM card between your smartphone and your flip phone for when you're in school. Also, what's the first thing that, having been in this state, having been in this city when disasters happened, what's the first thing that happens when there's a disaster? Phone calls don't go through. Right. Yeah, you're relying on the text messaging system to talk to people. Like half the phone calls don't go through. What? Why? No. I mean, look. Okay, I get it. The sentiment is roughly decent, right? It's like, we're going to. I gotta text you. Let me see what I got here. It's just. The sentiment is roughly decent. You know. we don't want kids to be addicted to algos. And I mean, of course, like that poor village in Brazil. Yeah, I mean, that's real. But at the same time, parents are never going to put up with not communicating with their kids. So apparently there's a couple of states that don't allow cell phones. Well, I guess you just really trust the heck out of your school. Maybe just do teaching and engage with the students. And if they pick up their phone, be like, hey, can I see that? Is that your parent? Because if not, you're in trouble. I mean, it's a little more work, but then the kids are safe if there's ever a disaster. I mean, 9/11, everybody just got scattered to the four winds. People were walking, young kids were walking the distance from downtown Manhattan to uptown. I mean, hundreds of streets. What? I mean, the radius of New York City is almost 20 miles in places. Well, people need to communicate. You know? All right, anyway. I'm done ranting. It's just such a good thing to rant on. It's just such a bad idea. You know, you could do it in software, but the thing is, if you did it in software, it's going to have to be open source, so no one's going to trust it. No one's going to trust it. Because, I mean, you could tell me that the cell phone companies won't be coerced by the law enforcement to use the kid phone restrictions to restrict an adult's phone because they don't like what they're doing. But I won't believe you. It's not true. That's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So apparently the 18 to 34 crowd think a 4-day work week would be better because they're not crazy. So we're talking about a 32-hour week to be specific. So 3-day weekend, 4-day work week. But yeah, it was a CNBC poll, and I mean, like, most people are like, why wouldn't we do this? You know, like, maybe the boomers don't, but I think even Gen X is, like, the numbers are pretty good. Like, this is a popular idea. Why is it not getting any traction? Of course, we know why, because everybody likes it when you look busy. Supposedly that's what's important for a company, right? And it makes you wonder what the real agenda is here. Yeah, because all the studies and all the stats that have come out about 4-day work weeks, people just work harder. They appreciate it, and they bust their butts during those 4 days. And then those 3 days, they just let loose, right? What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. Anyway, on to space. Space. More silliness. Okay, so Boeing Starliner apparently has had a successful CFT or crew flight test. This is a Boeing venture. So yes, Boeing's back in the news. Maybe they're trying to distract from their exploding planes. I don't know. But yeah, it didn't get stuck in orbit this time. That's the thing that happened to their Starliner program. It is a capsule. It isn't like a rocket or a plane or anything like that. It went up on, I believe it was the Apollo platform, but I don't know. Anyway, it's competing with SpaceX's Dragon, and this is their third attempt in a few weeks for a manned launch. They finally have gotten to the point after 15 years of trying to get to a manned launch. They're about 3 years behind SpaceX as far as where they are. They had in the past sent a capsule up to the space without any people on it, and did successfully dock with the ISS. One of the things that set this all off about 15 years ago was the only way we could get astronauts on or off, that's right, astronauts, not cosmonauts, on or off the ISS was to go to Russia and pay them tens and almost hundreds of millions of dollars per astronaut, per seat. And that is embarrassing. Because Russia was a recently failed country, and we're supposedly this badass country. We can't get it together. So we open it up to the market. Great thing. SpaceX trumps most of its competition, but Boeing's hung in there, and yeah, they're about 3 years behind where SpaceX is right now. And by the way, the delays, that 3-year delay cost Boeing about $1.1 billion in related costs. But anyway, congrats to Boeing for getting your capsule up into space, and really good news for everybody because, well, competition's a good thing. All right, so this is a couple weeks old, but it's worth mentioning just for posterity. There were massive solar flares a couple weeks ago a G5 solar flare, Earth facing, and it actually had some interesting side effects. One of them is auroras all the way down to Arkansas. Another one is that some farmers were actually having problems with their GPS. And you might be like, oh, poor farmers and their GPS. What is that, like 100 people? Well, those 100 people are feeding you. Yeah, and it was planting season. And, a week delay can mean 5% less food that's grown. Because now things aren't going to grow to maturity. There's going to be less weight on the food. When you have tight margins like this, it matters. So, yeah, especially in places with short growing seasons, it's a big deal. Anyway, yeah, that's it for space. I know space somehow ended on farmers. Pretty interesting. So, science, a couple of things. Apparently the new car smell is carcinogenic. Can't get a carcinogenic. Yeah, and it's kind of required. Well, it actually is, it's some of the chemicals that they use in cars that are flame retardant are what makes that new car smell. But that the flame retardant chemicals, specifically tris chloroisotropyl phosphate, or TCIPP, is carcinogenic, and we suspected that for a while. But yes, I'll give some credit to the American Medical Association and the ones that came out about this. But I'll give some credit to the National Toxicology Program, who are also working on this problem right now. TheHill.com if you want to learn more. But it seems like the new car smell will be changing and or going away. I mean, they coat everything with fire retardant chemicals, and it's a carcinogen. That's why I have cancer. Yay. Apparently, Cambridge University, a deaf toddler has had their hearing restored via gene therapy. So really cool. I always try to end on some good news, and science is the place to get it. Real science, not seance. Auditory neuropathy is genetic, and what happens is basically the nerves in the ear are just disconnected from the brain. There's basically a short, and there's no connection between the nerves. They were able to grow new nerve network from the ear to the brain using gene therapy. So they basically had a surgery to inject GMO cells with the corrected gene, and that's what it took in this case. So DBOTO is the name of the gene therapy. If you're interested, for patients with the OTOF, or which is it's for patients with the OTOF mutation. It is. Yes, the OTOF mutation is the name of the auditory neuropathy at the genetic level. Okay, so anyway, check that out if you're interested. I'm still waiting for blast wave the blast wave treatment for stones, for kidney stones, to actually be in use in hospitals. I'm not hearing about it or seeing it, but that's several years old, and apparently it goes all the way back to 2016 when NASA first developed it. And it is cheaper, and it's a walk-in procedure instead of having to have an overnight stay in a hospital. 1 out of 10 people get stones. Come on, let's get to work. I mean, come on, insurance companies, stick up for yourselves. I don't know why I have to tell you that. Anyway, thank you so much. That was my Dystopia report for the day. Thank you for putting up with all the crazy video things. I'm going to try to edit that stuff out if I can. And if I can't, well, sorry it's 1080p. I'm sure you don't care. It was kind of just a flex to be able to use 4K. But I am future-proof. If we start going into a 4K world, or I get a computer that can handle 4K, maybe I'll try upgrading the video stream again. I love this camera. Let me know what you think of the camera, if you like it. All right, have a good night. Choose wisely. Choose to share. Good night, everyone. And watch for my short segments. It's not going to just be the Technocrat Live. Oh, and interviews will be back. All right, catch you later.